Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa and Science Advisor Matt Moniz, and we are broadcasting to you live over Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com and over the WBSM streaming app, and also over the Paranormal Radio app as well on TalkStream Live. Because we're not on the radio tonight, there's a college football game on, so we get to put our hair down a little. Well, Moniz gets to put his hair down a little bit.
Yeah.
The rest of us, we just, you know, I'm probably a little shaggier than Matt Costa right now, but Moniz will just do all the hair letting down for the rest of us. It's been a while, Moniz. How you been?
Very, very, very busy, and working on a new project. So I won't be able to talk about it till next week if everything works out right.
Well, if it works out right, you won't be able to talk about it at all. I mean, if it really works out right.
How so?
Like if, you know, you only know what they've told you so far. When you get there,
okay,
there might be something.
I don't think there should be a conflict.
There could be a reason why they're looking for you in particular. You have a very particular set of skills.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It's in. Oh, don't want to give too much away. It's inside the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yes, it is.
So we don't know what could be there. You could show up. There could be a Bigfoot locked away in a cage somewhere.
Yeah.
There could be, you know, the remnants of a UFO crash being stored in some facility somewhere.
One of their halls may be haunted.
So, well, that part's definitely true.
Yes.
So that if it works out, it works out, and then you can tell us. But if it really works out, then you can't tell us anything. That's the point that I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I just when you were sharing the information about what was going on, I was like, I wonder if there's something beyond just what's on the surface here with this.
Like I said, I don't want to get ahead of things.
Well, it's an opportunity. We can say it's an opportunity, but I think this was an opportunity where they reached out to you as opposed to you reaching out to them, right?
It was actually a combination of both.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's just keep thinking that maybe they've got something that they need to call you in for specially. Okay. That's what I'm hoping happens here. You know, especially we've got all this talk about the train coming through the swamp right there, and you know, maybe they need your particular set of skills. But we will use your particular set of skills tonight as we talk about the paranormal, which is what we do each and every Saturday night. And tonight we will have some I don't know, a bit of a loose format. We can do that when we're on the internet only. Actually, we can do that on the radio too, because who cares? Like, we run the show. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, as long as we're not over the airways, we can be kind of naughty.
Well, I mean, we got to keep it somewhat clean. We do some of our friends out there in internet land that rebroadcast the show, such as the Dark Matter Digital Network, and you know, iTunes carries the podcast. We mark it under clean. So we've never gotten bagged on that, surprisingly. iTunes just doesn't listen. They don't care. They just like, these guys have done like 560 shows. What is this, 559?
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't there also a...
It seems like episode 500 was just 59 episodes ago.
Yeah, really.
Really, it just time flies.
But I think you're allowed a certain measure of the song, not...
Of songs. No, yeah. I'm talking about swears.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I'm picturing there's probably a room somewhere at Apple headquarters where they have like a bunch of people that have to sit there and listen to all these podcasts that mark themselves clean and be like, oh, wait, he said sucks. What do we do? What do we do? He said sucks. What's the line of demarcation here for bad words? And I was looking through some of the filters that they have for different podcasts, and you know, one of the filters for one of the sites is that actually, like, if you put sucks, they like categorize your podcast as being adult language.
Or just terrible.
Well, what if you're talking about vacuum cleaners?
Or just like a terrible podcast?
Well, I think it's because people put out podcasts that are like
Is
like
it like
Spooky South Coast sucks. It's a podcast where they just talk about how terrible we are. That'd be a good show. I would listen to that. I'd tune into that.
But what if the podcast was about vacuum cleaners?
Well, I'm sure there is one somewhere.
Can you imagine how interesting a vacuum cleaner podcast?
There's so many different ways you could go with it, though. Like, so you have like the first episode, Hoover, the inside story, Dyson, a man in his dream.
I take that back. It would be interesting.
I think I would listen to it.
I was being a little schmarmy.
You know what? And you know what? You know who? If I think we should start one. We should start a vacuum cleaner podcast. And you know who should be the first guest?
Handy Andy.
Handy Andy. We'll have Handy Andy on. For those of you who don't know, Handy Andy is pretty much
local celebrity.
Yeah.
But he's pretty much the only vacuum cleaner repairman I've ever seen a commercial for in my life.
How long has he been around? 30-something years?
I don't know, because he looks like he's like 38 in the commercials.
I remember him back in the 80s.
I don't. Has there been multiple generations of Handy Andy?
I think it actually may have been.
Have there been, has he been cloned?
Maybe. I don't know.
Like, is there there's like old, 1950s canister Handy Andy with the canister vac?
Like that episode of Erie, Indiana, where they slept in Tupperware.
Oh, I don't know if I remember that.
No, it was a good episode.
So we should start a vacuum cleaner podcast, and we should call it This Podcast Sucks.
Yeah. Yep. This is a $1,000 idea.
Yeah.
$100 idea.
Maybe even $10.
Right.
The audience seems to be for the vacuum cleaner podcast idea. Colleen even gave us a tagline: Dyson, it only needs one ball. Let's not get testy. So tonight we'll talk about the paranormal. We're going to be joined by Michelle, who, if you are a listener to Midnight in the Desert, you know Michelle as the producer of that show, and also as one of the stars of the After Midnight show that airs on Fridays after midnight in the desert. And we put out there this week that we're looking for people who want to audition for Reading the Week in Weird. Now, I'm going to kind of let everybody in on a little secret here. For years, we read the Week in Weird, and for years it was, myself reading a story, and Matt reading a story, and Moniz reading a story. And I know a lot of people have said, "Oh, we want to go back to that. Like, we liked it when you guys did it that way." Like, no offense to you guys, but I was forcing you to do something that you really weren't comfortable with. I could kind of tell that you weren't really cool with. Especially because I handed you the story 10 seconds before you were about to read it.
Yeah.
So, Matt does a fantastic job all week long of finding these stories and putting them up there. So, now it would be a little bit different, because now he would have an idea of what story he wanted to do, and he'd have time to practice it and everything. But also, I also feel like it's better if you're not the one reading the story, so that you can just listen to somebody else reading the story, because I need you guys to help me come up with the smart-ass things to say about the stories. And I think that's where we really, did a good job with bringing in. We had Melody, and we had why am I blanking on Ashley's name? Oh, Ashley. That's it. No, I was just kidding. I knew it was Ashley. And so we had them kind of read the stories, and that gave us the chance to come up with the smart ass comments. So that's why I'm thinking, we'll bring in another, because we could always just go back to, we could now see there's a such thing as the internet now, as opposed to in 2006 when we were doing the Week in Weird, where I could send you a story on Monday and be like, "Here, Moniz, this is going to be your story on Saturday." And you would have plenty of time to read over it and get familiar with it and come up with what you wanted to say about it. But I just feel it's better if it's
organic.
Yeah, spur of the moment, kind of, let's just react to it. So I put up a thing for asking for auditions of anyone that's interested in doing it, and we got a lot of response. So, but as is usually the case, you get a lot of response to people that want to do it. Then it's a matter of whether or not they actually do it and keep up with it. And, we picked a couple of people in the past who have done a great job with the Week in Weird, but there are also people who are very busy. And so they haven't had a chance to keep up with it. So this way here, I think what we're going to do is, because we've had such interest in it, we'll try to give everybody a shot. We'll work everybody in. Everybody that can do it, that we listen to it and we say, okay, you can read something on the air. I mean, there's going to be some people that are going to, kind of...
Oh, yeah.
They're going to audition and they're not going to be good enough. And if we don't pick you, don't take it personally. Not everybody's made to read something on the air. Believe me.
Even us.
I read things on the air all the time, and there's days when I just shouldn't be doing it. And some days I start off like as I've been filling in the newsroom again. There's days when I would start reading stories at the beginning of the day, and I'd be like, "Hey, ho, doing a good job," and then by the end of the shift, I'm like stumbling over every other word. So, it's not a calling for everybody. So don't take it personally if we don't incorporate you into the mix. But we're going to kind of pick the best of the best, and maybe we'll do like a rotation thing. But we were kind of talking about it off the air before we started the show, but we'll involve the audience in the discussion a little bit here. One of the things I'm thinking is if there's all these people that want to do it, why not just let them each submit a couple of stories each week, and then we can just play the ones that we want to use that week, and then, we can save some of them to carry over the next week.
Yeah.
And so this way here we have like correspondents who are out there getting these stories. Now, Matt, you said you would prefer video for these, right?
Yeah, I think for our YouTube audience, they would appreciate it.
And it wouldn't be too hard for you to run the videos as we were.
No, I think it's good.
Doing the show.
It'd be all right.
Okay, so we'll see how that works out, and we'll see if we can get everybody on board with that plan. But tonight we're going to have Michelle join us in a few moments, and she'll be doing tonight's Week in Weird. I know that they're very busy with. They're having some meetings today for Midnight in the Desert, so hopefully she'll be able to join us.
Now, I have a question. What about setting up something for our listeners to go back into, our past Week in Weird shows and do follow-ups? What happened to the story afterwards?
Well, they're all there. I mean, anybody can.
That's what I'm
go
saying.
Back and check them out.
It's like an Easter egg.
Because most of these stories, to be honest with you, most of these stories are just like the weird story of the week. This guy decided to have sex with a skeleton. I'm pretty sure that after that story ran, that guy kind of couldn't have sex with skeletons anymore. I mean, I hope he could. You know what story was getting a ton of interest this week, Matt?
Is it that Chinese geneticist?
No,
Okay.
I didn't even see that one. The vampire couple story that you put up.
Yeah.
Getting
Weird.
tons of response. And I think that's something we should
Doesn't it like physically make you sick?
To drink blood?
Yeah. Isn't that like a thing?
Well, isn't it supposed to turn your stomach?
Yeah.
Like you can say you're a vampire, but like there's implication. There's consequences to drinking human blood.
Yes. I mean,
Like, medically,
yes.
you can't do it. It's not like a thing. It's like eating raw meat. You're not supposed to, or like drinking like cow's blood. Or
like
something.
if you remember, and it might be kind of hard for us to remember, like back when we were kids, but you would lose a tooth, and your mouth would start bleeding, and if you didn't like do the salt water rinse really fast, and especially like if you lost a tooth in the car, and your mouth is bleeding, like the blood is going into your mouth, and it would turn your stomach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you would be like, I don't feel so good. And then you would have like 2 or 3 other loose teeth that when you threw up, they would come out too, and then you have to pick them up out of your vomit so you can get a... No, that didn't happen to anybody else? No, that didn't happen to me either. I'm just kidding.
It does make you like kind of nauseous though if you get blood in your mouth.
Right. And it's
for most people apparently, but not vampires.
Well, I mean, I guess if you prepare it correctly.
I liked there was somebody's comment on Facebook of how they didn't believe that they were real vampires because real vampires wouldn't have the cheesy decor that they had.
Right. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw it.
It wasn't nearly gaudy enough.
Like
or
vampires.
Gothic enough.
Yeah, vampires have to have style.
Yeah, they were like they're like a cool supernatural being.
And the idea behind a vampire is you're trying to lure in others, and you're not going to lure in others with like a kitchen that looks like it's from the 70s.
Right.
I mean, maybe in the 70s you could lure people in with that, but not now.
Okay, if you're talking, like storybook vampires and vampire lore, going beyond like the Anne Rice type of stuff. Vampires actually wanted to blend in, because well,
I guess that would make sense.
A 70s kitchen isn't going to help you do that either.
No, but the point being is they didn't want to stand out.
Right.
But you still
they were drinking,
still have some sense of style.
They were drinking. They had their blood in like their chalices or wine glasses or whatever they were drinking it out of.
Goblets.
Yeah, on like a TV table from Walmart.
Okay, yeah, but
So I don't know. Put a tablecloth. Make it a thing. If it's a weekly thing, like if that's your Sunday dinner,
all right,
treat it like it's Sunday dinner.
Have you ever like gone to the store and bought a steak?
Oh yeah.
Or gotten like a good piece of prime rib or roast beef or something, and then there's the blood in the bottom of the styrofoam package. You ever like dared somebody else in the house to drink it?
No.
Or dared yourself to drink it?
It's mine.
Well, I have done that before. I used to dare my brother to drink it. I'd be like, put a little salt, pepper in it. Tastes like tomato juice. Does not taste like tomato juice. But I've done that. We also used to have a ritual, Matt Costa and I. Well, I don't know if did you partake in the ritual?
What's up?
Remember the ritual we used to do at the diner?
We had a lot. I don't know.
the one with the au jus.
Oh, yeah.
So
Right.
on our steam table, we used to have a big metal pan of au jus. So if somebody ordered a roast beef dinner, we would just slice the roast beef, dip it in that for a couple seconds, and that's how we would warm it up for you. And then we'd give you a little bowl of it if you had like a French dip sandwich or whatever. And so we used to do this thing where I would like line up the dishwashers and pour the little monkey dishes full of the au jus, and I'd make them drink it. But you had to sip it, and you had to like give some sort of wise comment when you did it. So it would be like may the hair in your nether regions never turn gray, and then you would sip it, and then somebody else would have to say something else, So it was.
I don't remember the sayings, but
you don't remember the sayings?
No.
That was the best part. So, okay, well, that's.
I'm sure there was some weird rituals we had.
Yeah, we definitely had some weird stuff that we would do, but let's see if we have Michelle with us. Michelle, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, and you sound great. Can you hear us okay?
I'm sure there was.
I hear you great.
Oh, we're getting a little bit of a feedback from Matt. Let me see if that's my fault. And it is. There we go. It's always my fault now. Remember when I used to get so excited because I thought that was my chance to say, can you turn down your internet stream? Please silence your listening device. But nope, it's me. Each time it's just me. Well, Michelle, we were just telling everybody about who you are and what you do, but let's just reintroduce you to the audience again. And I know Dave said it correctly the other day on the show on Midnight in the Desert, but is it Bulgatz? Is that right?
Bulgatz.
Michelle Bulgatz.
Michelle Freed-Bulgatz.
You want the whole name, all three?
I guess so. Yeah.
I can do that.
I've been
if you
going
want
by that. It's I haven't made a for sure decision.
If you want to be the John Cougar Mellencamp of Paranormal Radio, that's fine with me. You'll get all three names. So Michelle Freed-Bulgatz is, and I've already butchered your name, is joining us to share with us some of the news stories of the week. And we had talked about having you kind of record these, Michelle, so we could try them out. But we decided to scrap that and just do it live. Bill O'Reilly. F it, we'll do it live. And I think we're going to have some fun. So if we make smart-ass comments during your story, don't take it personally.
Okay. Oh, well, I just want to start out, but you are the meanest brother ever.
Why?
Well, how can you do that? Like make them eat weird food?
I'm just helping him grow.
Well,
yes.
I guess I shouldn't really criticize you because I played some mean tricks on my siblings.
Well, I mean, are you trying to? Do you need to confess? Is there something you need to get off your chest?
I do. I kind of feel like this is a moment for me. All right, here goes. I made them eat, like, that chocolate, the baker's chocolate.
Oh, everybody does that, though. Don't feel bad about that.
Well, all right.
Did you see the video that's gone viral about that?
No.
There's a little boy who is like begging his mother, like she's got the chocolate out on the counter, and he's begging his mother for the chocolate, and she's like, "You're not gonna like it. It's not chocolate." And he's like crying and crying and crying that he wants it. So finally, she's like, "All right, fine, you want it." And so she gave him the thing, and he takes a big heaping spoonful of it and puts it in his mouth, and is just making the
awful
face, and but he's to give him credit, like at first he's trying not to. He's trying to be defiant and be like, "Oh, yeah, this is fine. This is exactly what I was expecting." But it doesn't really last very long. So if that's the worst thing you've ever done, Michelle, you're a pretty good person still. So.
Well, there's one more. Can I tell you one real quick one?
Yes.
So I shared a room with my sister, and I always had trouble sleeping at night. So I would rearrange all the furniture in the room without her ever knowing. Like literally, even her bed. I would like put my back up against the wall and like evenly with my feet move the bed over. And then she'd be on the whole other side of the bedroom. And then when her alarm clock rang in the morning for school, she was so discombobulated. It's great.
That reminds me of a trick that I used to play on all my siblings all at once. There was 5 of us. So, and we all would ride together in the car. And I would sit in the back. We had a station wagon, and my brother and I would sit in the back, and everybody, then my 3 sisters would be in the middle, and my brother would be back there with me, and we'd go somewhere, and either one kid would fall asleep in the car, or maybe all the kids would fall asleep in the car, or what have you. And so I used to love to do this thing if I was the only one awake, and if all 4 of them were asleep, or even if 1 or 2 of them were asleep, I used to love to either wake them up, or when they woke up, be like, hey, wake up.
We're not here.
Wake up. You're not going to believe it. We're at Disney World.
Oh, no.
What? Huh? And every time I would do it, and every time they would fall for it. So at one time I actually told them that we were at Wally World, and then I had to explain to them that Wally World's not a real place. Like, that's just the Six Flags that they called Wally World. Anyway, so we were talking about having some new Week in Weird correspondence, and Michelle, you were one of the first to volunteer. So, and I know that we've had the chance now to hear you on the After Midnight show for a little while now, but this is it. This is your star turn right here.
Oh, great. So, you want me to just jump into the first?
Sure, just jump right in.
Okay, so the first story I found is from Reuters. It's about John of God. Do you know who John of God is?
I don't.
Okay, so he's from Brazil, and he does these like healings, and he was actually on Oprah Winfrey, and she went over there to like check what he does, but he does those kind of surgical, surgeries, and heals people, like takes out their tumors with his fingers and all that stuff. Well, he's just been accused by 200 women they say it's the worst serial sex crime case in the country in the country's history. And so now they're arresting him. And I mean, people would make pilgrimages there to get healed. And, it was pretty scary stuff. Anyway, so the alleged victims, they're included from the United States, Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and Bolivia. And he denies the accusations, but he said that he would comply with the law. And there's this one Dutch choreographer that she's on the TV Global program on Friday, alleged that John of God sexually assaulted her, and the TV station spent 3 months investigating the story and interviewed dozens of other women who came forward about this. And they interviewed Oprah Winfrey, and she said that she empathizes with the women now coming forward and hope justice is served. So
that's just crazy. That, I mean, first of all, you're really putting your trust into somebody to go to see somebody that can heal you in that way. So you're already putting a lot of faith and a lot of trust in them just in that regard. So it's already an abuse of that trust if you're not fulfilling what it is that you're saying that you can do. And then to take even more advantage of that trust like that that's just disgusting.
I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people go to this place. And they come in flocks, and they're hoping, they're usually, most of these people are, they're losing all hope in medical our regular medical practices, and this is their last chance, and they spend money, and then they come, and then now we find out that there's some kind of sexual assault on these women. So it's pretty sad, if you ask me.
Well, if there's one thing that'll come out of this is that when he goes to prison, they're not going to let him just use his hands. Okay, moving on to the next story.
All right. Okay. So this next one is kind of right up my alley. I love this stuff. So, okay. The CIA secretly created mind-controlled dogs. What? You're supposed to say what?
No,
okay,
I say woof.
Oh, woof. Okay. In 1963, the CIA experimented with implanting devices in the brains of dogs in order to control their movements, influence their actions, and perhaps even surveil on unsuspecting humans. The specific aim of the research program was to examine the possibility of controlling the behavior of the dog in an open field by means of remotely triggering electrical stimulation of the brain. And I don't know, are you familiar with John Greenwald from the Black Vault?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's the one that collects all those secret files that, under the Freedom of Information Act. So he's been spending like 20 years trying to get this information out. He's been researching, and finally it's coming out. And they're calling this part of the MK Ultra project, which is pretty interesting that they started on dogs. And according to the redacted documents, 6 dogs had electrodes embedded entirely within a mound of dental cement on their skulls, and which were leads inserted under the dog's skin and attached to an external harness equipped with a battery pack and a brain stimulator. So, yeah, it's incredible, some of these experiments that we can't even imagine that they were doing, and who knows what they're doing now.
It's funny because a few years ago I gave a talk at the library here in New Bedford around Halloween time, just a Ghost of the South Coast presentation, and there was a guy who, I think he worked at the library, was a volunteer, and he came up to me afterwards and starts talking to me about when he was a young child. I forget the circumstances, but he was in the hospital for some reason, and he started asking the medical staff. I guess he had been in a coma, or he had been unconscious for a while, and he started asking the medical staff about things that had happened while he was in this state. And they thought it was very odd that he knew about these things that he wasn't conscious for. They can tell in the hospital when you're conscious because you're hooked up to monitors that let them know if you're conscious or not. So it's weird. Like when I had a sleep test, they knew I was awake before I'd even opened my eyes because of my brain waves. It's freaky. But anyway, so he told me that when he started talking about these things with the medical staff, that after a while there was some men from the government that came to visit him and started asking him all kinds of questions about what he saw during that time and like what he knew. And he said that they took him and his mother and they brought them to Washington, D.C., and they kept them there for a period of a couple of months and would make him do like all these tests and everything. And I mentioned to him MK Ultra, and I talked to him about some of these experiments that were done. He had never heard of it, and so he was either like the best actor in the world pretending to, making up this story to try to get my interest, pretending not to know anything about this stuff, or he was the real deal and really had no idea that he wasn't the only person that they had done this to. So it's just a very weird circumstance, but I don't doubt it. I mean, I don't doubt that they were looking for any kind of edge that they could get, and this seemed like it was the next evolution of warfare. Well, it's pretty scary. We do a lot of remote viewing on these kinds of things to figure out kind of what is going on. Just recently we worked. We didn't, remote viewing. You don't know what the target is, and we were doing it on Andy Bishago and his claims of the jump room. I'm not sure if you're familiar with all that, but and it's really interesting because in our sessions we get information that kind of
doesn't quite point to the fact that what they claim happened. It's kind of something like being brainwashed. That's what comes up in our session. So it's pretty interesting, because it's like there's parts of the story that are real, and then parts of the story that are a little foggy.
Well, one thing I want to do is sometime in the future, Michelle, I want to have you come on and be the guest for the whole show talking about remote viewing, because it's something that we really haven't covered it that much.
I'm not saying a thing.
And
oh no, why?
You familiar with SciTech?
SciTech?
Yeah.
I'm not. No, I don't think so. What's SciTech?
It was a private remote viewing organization. Back in the early 90s, I got involved with.
Oh, not a good experience there?
Well, not so much the experience, it's the people.
Who? Oh, I guess you can't. Well, maybe off air you can tell me
he
a little bit more.
He wasn't too happy with the company car they gave him. They're like, you don't need a company car. You're a remote viewer. Just go there in your mind.
But getting back to what the government does, lately they've been working with cetaceans or dolphins and whales and stuff like that, using them in warfare for the Navy, indirectly controlling them to do their bidding to find submarines and mines and do underwater warfare.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing more and more of that, and it kind of makes sense, right?
They also have, I don't know if I'm stepping out of bounds here with this, but they've also been working with controlling insects.
Oh, like nanotechnology?
In a sense, yeah. Using basically insects to like bore into a building or get into a building, and then...
I mean, I can see the commercial applications for that, because you could, if Orkin got a hold of that technology...
Doesn't that give a new meaning to a fly on the wall? Like wishing you were a fly on the wall?
Quite literally.
I would not be and I would hate to think that they could control I mean, I'd like to control them. I'd like to keep all the bees away from me for the rest of my life. Not a big bee fan, not a big hornet fan, but to also think like that they could just decide to infest. So say let's just say there's somebody that's a powerful person in government that wants to, city government that wants to have some buildings cleared out so that a new project can come in. They can just infest it with cockroaches. I don't really like that plan. Although I guess they could do that anyway. You just wouldn't be able to control them. Just like, hey, just go, cockroaches. Just let them loose. Anyway, don't listen to me.
Totally up there.
I was just looking at some comments online from somebody that I was interacting with. Well, I'll save that for a little later. But do you have another story for us, Michelle, before we let you go?
I do. I don't love this one, but it was something a little interesting. Well, whatever. I'll just say. So you've heard of Tom DeLonge, the former Blink 182. So he has a new show coming out. So I guess I wanted to talk about that. It's called Strange Times. It's based on his book, and it's going to be airing on TBS. And I just wondered what you kind of think about him coming out with a TV show based on his book.
Well, how people feel about him. I mean, you've been hearing the conversations on Midnight in the Desert, and some of the experts that you brought on that reference him and the To the Stars Academy, and at first I thought, hey, this is something here. This is going to be the chance for at least a little bit of somewhat mainstream cred for looking into ufology and looking into this. But then the more that I've seen the stuff that he's come out with and the people that have worked with him and seen some of the criticisms of him online, I realized this is just some, more of a publicity stunt than anything for him, I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too. I know it's interesting because some of the people he has on his staff are pretty legitimate scientists, like Hal Puthoff, and he's working on some really interesting things. And it boggles my mind how he was able to get this group together to work with him.
Yeah, I think that part of it is I think his platform draws some attention, because you think that with somebody like, obviously he's got a direct line into Coast to Coast. He's going to get you articles in Rolling Stone and Entertainment Weekly. He's going to get you coverage in regular newspapers, more mainstream publications that normally don't give ufology much of a chance unless it's something ridiculous takes place, or unless Steve Bassett holds a big press conference or something. Other than that, they don't really get space in the media, in the mainstream media. So this is a chance to kind of have that foothold, because now you've got this guy that people look at and say, oh well, here's a rock star that actually wants to spend some of his own money getting involved in this. But then the more you look into it, it kind of looks like maybe he's not spending his own money on it, and so it's But have you tried reaching out to try to book him for Midnight in the Desert?
Yes, quite a few times. We're talking with them, and I keep getting pushed off, but they don't say no. So, I follow the rule that they have to say no 3 times, and they haven't said no 3 times yet.
That's a good rule to have.
Yeah.
But so just we'll delete all of my comments from the record. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks.
But I mean, obviously, you want to have the chance to ask questions, and you want to have the chance to kind of get to the bottom of it, and I think that that show would be the perfect format for that. I hope that he is doing it. Let's face it. This isn't a knock on Coast to Coast and on George Norrie, but the interviews that I've heard with him there and the interactions that he's had with that program have been mostly pro, to the stars. It's been mostly on the positive side of what it is that he's doing, and I don't think the hard questions have been asked of him yet.
Yeah, well, if anyone's going to ask the hard questions, that's Dave Schrader. So I'm going to work on getting him on. Maybe he's scared. I challenge him.
So there you go. You heard it here. I'm sure he listens to the show. We actually have quite a bit of, music industry people that listen to the show. We were talking about this. I was talking about this last night with some friends. We actually know some people that tune into the show that people would be like, oh, really? Oh, they listen to the show, but we're not gonna expose anybody. But and then so just one other guest suggestion, because I haven't had a chance to tell you. When it comes to be Dave's birthday, try and book Bruce Springsteen for him, okay?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Any of your music guests out there, please, Michelle at midnightinthedesert.com, please give me a lead. I have been working for 6 months trying to get him on.
Well,
and I am not going to give up.
If it doesn't work out, we could at least get you Eddie Money, because we've had Eddie Money on the show a couple times. So
okay, I'll take it.
Maybe we could work that out for you. All right, Michelle. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing with us these weird stories.
Thank you.
And we'll
have a good one.
Talk to you soon.
Nice meeting you all.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
That is Michelle. I should try to say her name again, but I'm not going to, because I know I'll botch it. We do have some calls lined up, though. There's some people on the phone that would like to talk to us, so we can go into those calls. Let me just make sure that I switch everything over here so that we can...
That goes there.
Make sure that the calls go through. Matt will let us know if they don't work. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast. How are you? Hi, Rusty. How are you? Can you hear us okay? Okay, you sound like... Are you on a speakerphone? Okay, yeah, because you sound just a little far away. Oh, there you go, Matt. So I didn't realize I didn't have it on. Yeah, you sound a little better. Okay. Sorry, go right ahead.
I just wanted to say that guest you had on, she was kind of right and wrong about Tom DeLonge. I'm a huge fan of Blink-182. And he was really deep into the UFO stuff. And the rumor was that he was kicked out of Blink-182 because they thought he was a kook. But it was also because he was really woke on the JQ.
Yeah, I had heard that they were talking to him about, when he was still in the band, he was still very much interested in this, that it had come up a few times about these other pursuits. But do you think that with that genre of music and thinking about who the fan base is, I mean, do you think that they would really be that put off by somebody having that kind of an interest?
Yeah, well, once he started being like, well, how come nobody ever talks about how many people Stalin killed? And, they built the smokestacks after the war, and it was more like only 400,000 killed. that's when they started being like, dude, you can't be in a pop punk band if you're going to be, questioning the Holocaust.
Yeah, bringing in those kind of things certainly will alienate the fan base.
Shout out to Handsome Truth.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the call. And let's go to the next call. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast.
Hello?
Hi, are you there? We can barely hear you.
Sorry, I had you on. I was just listening to you. Wow, big whoops right there. Yeah, that's bad radio call and etiquette. I just wanted to share a personal paranormal experience, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm living in and fixing up a very old house. It was built during the 1940s. It was actually built by a dentist. And in those days, when you did dental work, you were exposed to a lot of mercury fumes. And gradually, a lot of the dentists at the time got mercury poisoning, which causes dementia, a similar ailment that would affect people who were in the hat-making industry, because they would use mercury to make beaver fur, into hats, like, fedoras and stuff. And that's where the term mad as a hatter comes from, because those poor guys, and I'm assuming also women, those poor people suffered from that terribly. So this house was built. It's built very sturdily. It's mostly stone. But a lot of the interior work, like the cabinet making and stuff, just has kind of bizarre angles, because by the time he got to that stuff, he was starting to kind of lose his mind. And you can just kind of tell, like, it'll play with your head when you're looking at things, and angles just don't go right. So it's already kind of just a psychologically unsettling house to be in. And I was told that he and his family, they owned a monkey, and the monkey died, but it was still haunted by the ghost of the monkey. I never experienced anything like that. But one of the first few weeks when I was in here, I moved into one of the upstairs rooms, and I kind of set up my little base camp, and I set up a bed and all that. And I kept hearing one night, I thought I heard something downstairs, like someone knocked something over. And when I moved in, I brought 2 cats with me, because, I like cats, and also cats will hunt, small pests and stuff. And if you're dealing with a house that's been sitting empty, you're going to want a couple of cats
right, sure, yeah.
Hunt any creepy crawlers. And I thought, it's, when you're living somewhere and you've got a couple of cats running around, you hear a noise, your brain doesn't immediately just go nuts, You think, it was a cat. And most of the time it was. But I looked over, and I'm hearing this. I look over, and both cats are up there with me, and I'm hearing something happen directly below me. Not just hearing the noise, but, like, you can kind of feel and hear something at the same time, like footsteps and such.
Sure, yeah.
I can feel below me someone is not just, it sounds like someone's knocking boxes of stuff over and pacing around. And the moment I realized that the cats were up with me, that nothing else could be making that noise, my blood just went cold. Because there's that moment where you realize this is real, something's happening. And the first thought I had was, it must be someone broke in. There's someone here trying to steal copper pipe or wires and stuff, like people do in abandoned houses. So my heart started going a mile a minute, because I'm about to deal with something that most people think about, but they never actually have to deal with. So I'm a law-abiding citizen. I had a gun, and I got it, and I was prepared to go downstairs and confront whoever was in my house. And I went down there very slowly. Every step I made seemed to be super loud. I was convinced that whoever was in there was just going to just suddenly burst out of nowhere and run over me. I didn't really want to get in between them and the exit, because I'd rather have someone just run away and get out of there than have a confrontation or a standoff, or someone gets hurt. I'm not a cop. I'm not trying to arrest people. I just wanted whoever it was to be out of my house. And I find where the noise is coming from. It's this one bathroom on one side of the house, which was directly below that bedroom. And I'm standing outside the door of it, and I'm hearing someone walk around inside it, just heavy, serious pacing footsteps, like a big, angry man is just walking around, just stomping. And I start yelling some stuff. I make some stuff up. I basically pretend to be some kind of angry Vietnam vet just to try to scare this guy and make him run out of there, partly saying it for their benefit and partly for mine, And I finally just open the door, because, at this point I'm either going to, call the police and, and invite someone from the government to come deal with it for me, and or deal with it myself. And I don't pay taxes, so I'm not about to invite the government to come take care of my problems for me. So I opened the door, and one side of this bathroom, by the way, is entirely mirrors, because apparently the dentist who built the place got really into the swinger scene in the 50s and 60s. So I can see, even though I opened the door, I can see everything that's in there, other than like inside the bathtub, which is this horrible thing that I've never even been able to fix yet. It's like this whirlpool bathtub, like a jacuzzi bathtub. I don't even know what there's like a million pipes. It's horrible. It's like out of a Lovecraft movie. And I open the door and I look in there, and there's nothing. There's no one. Total silence. I just couldn't understand. I looked all over. I tried to see if maybe there's my brain started coming up with those insane things to rationalize it away. Like maybe there's some hidden trap door, like some Hardy Boys stuff, like someone was in there and they managed to escape that way. Just anything to rationalize that I heard and felt something.
But the noise had completely stopped when you went into the room.
It completely stopped.
What about the feeling?
I finally settled down and I went back upstairs, and I started hearing the footsteps again. And I just didn't even bother to go down, because it's just like, what the hell is going on? And then this happened again on the next night. This happened. I heard it in a different room. It was in my garage. And I thought, okay, here we go. It's going to be this whole thing. I'm going to go in there. There's going to be noises. I'm going to go there. They're going to be gone. My heart's beating. I've got a light. I've got a gun. What's going to happen? And I was almost hoping it would be something. And this time it was actually a bunch of black people stealing my tools. So that time it actually, I stopped thinking I was insane.
Well, I mean, I don't know why it mattered what color they were, but at least you didn't have a ghost in your house anymore. Thank you very much for the call. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420 if you want to call in and share your own stories. And we can discuss some of your own experiences if that's what you want to do. I know that when I put out the call for people to call in and do the Week in Weird auditions, I think some people got a little confused with what we were asking. And there was a lot of people that commented in the post and said, well, I don't know about news stories, but I have my own stories I'd like to share. And we always are willing to take calls and have you share your experiences. But just in terms of the Week in Weird, that's not really what we're looking for. With that format, we're looking for somebody to do like what Michelle did, where you're sharing with us some of these stories. And, when we first started doing the Week in Weird in 2006, when we started doing this show, it was really hard to find paranormal stories in the news.
Now they're everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, Matt, you go through finding all these stories all week long and put them up on our social media. And so that there's just I don't want to say a glut of stories, but there's certainly a lot more than there was, 10 years ago.
Oh, there definitely is. I remember searching for stories originally, and there were maybe like 3 or 4 sources, like solid sources that we would kind of like go to. Mm-hmm. But now it seems like every news source out there has a strange news section or a weird news section or out of the ordinary.
Sure.
Stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes, it's stuff that wouldn't really fit in with the show. Right. Sometimes just like weird crimes or something like that. But a lot of times there are, frequent ghost stories, UFO stories, Bigfoot stories, all different kinds of cryptid stories. What used to just be a legend that people would share is now a sighting that people are reporting. So there's been a different, and we talked about this even back then, where we would say, I wish that they would just take these stories a little bit more seriously. And it didn't have to be at Halloween time. So, what if we told you that there was a local home that was full of ghosts? We'll have that story coming up at 11. Like they and I used to do some of those interviews. I used to be the guy on the other end calling in to share some of those stories, and you would get the hosts or the interviewers that would say things like, well, come on, Tim, we know there's really no such thing as ghosts. So what do you really think this is that people are seeing? I think it's ghosts. No, but come on, we know ghosts aren't real, so what is it if it's not a ghost? No, it's a ghost.
Yeah.
I mean, there's possibilities that it could be other things, but if somebody says that they've gone through all of those rational possibilities, then I'm going to say, then if all that's left is a ghost, then I'm going to take them at their word that it's a ghost. And so there has been that shift in tone to the way that the stories are reported now. So now it's a matter of the paranormal aspect of it, the supernatural aspect of it, is treated with a little bit more respect. Still not exactly where we would like to see it, because otherwise it wouldn't be in the weird news category.
Right.
It would just be in the news category. But, you know, the fact that it's even getting up there and that it's getting treated with a little bit more of an editorial hand. I'm sorry. Well, a little more of an objective hand than a subjective hand, I should say. Because there would always be, you know, Jeff Belanger's talked about it with us here on the show, because he used to be, like me, the journalist that would, at Halloween time, they'd turn to you and say, well, you're into the ghost stuff. Can you write us a couple Halloween stories? And we always would say, but these stories are good year-round.
Right.
And, you know, a little bit of inside baseball here. The company that I work for, the company that owns, you know, our stations here, they don't shy away from that. The people who are, you know, the national team that handles the content, the people that are kind of the overseers of what I do here, they will tell us, like, if you have good legends in your area, good UFO sightings that happen, any of that stuff, report it, because people want to know about it. And they even say to us, like,
and in some cases,
don't be goofy about it.
You'll get more reports because people, oh, somebody did see the same thing I saw.
Like, we've been getting inundated lately with UFO sightings.
Yes.
Which it turns out that we're in the middle of a couple of different meteor showers. But we've been...
Some of these had nothing to do with meteors.
Well, but a lot of the ones that I've been getting here at the station have
like
been...
the flaming thing falling out of the sky.
We had the video, and we put it up there, and other people started sending in...
And you saw the other one I tagged you with down in Florida. That looked very identical.
And that's, you know, I'm assuming that those are meteors, because... we did a little research. I contacted the airport, and I said we had some people that saw it. Because at first, so the report comes in, and the video comes in. It came from a friend of mine, a personal friend, somebody that I know and I trust, and somebody that wouldn't be messing around with us. And she said, I don't know what I just saw, but it wasn't one of those lanterns. And she says, I'm going to send you the video. So she sends me the video, and I look at it, and I say, wow, that's weird. I think I know what it is, but can I use it? Because if you saw it, other people saw it. And if we put it out there, maybe we can get confirmation. Maybe we can get a better video that shows exactly what it is, and we can explain it. So I put it up there, and I say, you know, what is this fiery UFO object? Thinking somebody's going to write back and say, oh, that's definitely a meteor, because here's the footage I caught where you can see that it's plainly a meteor. So we put the story up there, and we start getting all these photos and videos that start rolling in. And so I said, well, am I right? Because none of them really looked to me like I could definitely say that it was a meteor. In fact, it looked just weird in the way that it was coming down. And I know that they can come in all different shapes. It all depends on how much burns off as it enters the atmosphere.
What angle they come in at.
But this seemed a little bit elongated. And I suddenly had the thought in my head, I hope that there wasn't something that happened and that's a person. And so I called the airport and I said, has there been any kind of like air accidents around the area or anything? And they said, no, there's nothing like that. So, okay. I said, can I talk to, you know, somebody in air traffic control, or can I talk to the manager or somebody? And they're like, well, no, nobody's here, so we can't really connect. So I said, well, okay, well, I'm still not totally satisfied in that answer, but I feel comfortable enough to say I can keep making jokes about it online and not think that there's anything wrong with it. You know, like if somebody wants to say, oh, it's just a flaming pile of airplane poop, you know, which it doesn't flame, it freezes.
Right.
Like even I know that.
They also don't eject it out of the planes. It's held in a tank.
I know. That's a story that people continue to tell to this day. Like, why would they do that? If an RV can hold on to it.
Well, it's the same principle.
Why would an airplane not hold on to it? It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so I shared it, and for days we got more and more sightings, and people would be like, I just saw the same thing, but I didn't see it Tuesday. I saw it today. And so it kept going. So, you know, then you start to see a little bit more of these reports of people seeing these meteors, and they all tend to look the same. But we had, I think it was 2 different meteor showers that were happening at the same time.
The Elides and, I'm trying to remember the other one.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. But then the other thing too is there was a lot of people that were reporting seeing this bright pulsating light in the sky, and they said, it's not moving, but I don't think it's a planet because I've never seen it before, and I don't, it doesn't look like a star, and it's not acting like a star. And so I actually went to where some people were saying that they were seeing it, and I put it up on I put my phone up using the the Sky Map app.
The ISS?
No, it wasn't because you can even see, even though it's very slow moving.
Yeah.
You can still kind of, if you watch long enough, realize that there is motion with the space station. The other way that I can tell that it's not the space station, and I highly recommend this if you haven't done it, have you downloaded the ISS app on your phone?
No.
It's amazing. So they have an app, a free app. You can pay to get one without ads, but it's a free app, and they have cameras on the ISS.
Yeah.
And so you can watch what's going on. So it'll send you an alert. The sun is rising on the International Space Station. Click here to watch the sunrise. And
Every
so
90 minutes.
you just get to watch it. And then you can, it'll tell you like when it's over certain parts. It'll give you an alert if it's like over your area. And you can watch. And it actually gives you a map too that shows you like where it is in the sky. So if you're looking at a light and you think that it might be the ISS, you open up the app and it says, no, the ISS is over Australia right now. Okay, so it's not that. But I use the Sky Map app, which you just hold it up in the sky and it,
Oh, yeah. It shows you the constellations.
And so it was Betelgeuse was what it was. I'm sorry, Sirius was what it was.
Yeah, brightest star in the sky.
So, but people were freaked out by it, even though the brightest star in the sky, it's there all the time.
Yeah.
You see it all the time in the winter.
Yeah.
But people were freaked out by it. So, it's good to have these things at your disposal to be able to kind of figure it out. So, that's what we try to do when we put these stories out there. We're trying to share them and get people to talk about them and realize that that's what it is. I mean, if you get a good piece of footage, it doesn't matter. People aren't going to read the story. You can put up a video and say, here's a UFO that was captured over New Bedford. And then in the story, you can update that and say, 3 days after we posted this, we heard from the astronomy professor over at UMass Dartmouth who said that it's just this meteor shower.
Right.
But people, that doesn't matter. All they're watching is the video, and it's kind of giving it a life of its own. I remember there was a couple of UFOs that were spotted, I think, over the summer. That's
Santa Cruz.
That's a meteor.
Yeah.
It's a big triangle-shaped meteor. That looks like, yeah, your camera's on. We're on a split screen, so that camera is working, so that works.
There we go.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, Santa Cruz this past
So
yesterday, I think it was.
That's the advantage of having all of this technology at our hands, is we can put it out there pretty quickly and start asking around. One of the questions that came up though, and I forget if I don't know if I was hosting Midnight in the Desert or just listening to Midnight in the Desert, but there was somebody who was talking about, having a UFO sighting experience and not being able to get it on camera. And
how many ghost sightings have we had with cameras right in our hands and not thought to bring the camera out?
Right, and that's the thing. Like, just because we have them on us, like that's the big caveat that everybody has. Well, if it was a real UFO sighting, somebody would have caught it on camera because we all have cameras in our pockets. You know how many times you sent me a footage of a UFO that somebody's giving you from their camera phone?
Oh, yeah. And
I've said, I can't. It's just two white dots in the sky. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And you can't tell if it's somebody moving the camera or if it's the sky moving, or the object moving in the sky.
Oh.
So
let's help some people out right now. If you see something in the sky and you're recording it on your camera, leave the focus alone. Don't try and zoom in.
Don't zoom in.
Just leave it alone. Just record the whole event. Don't try and zoom in.
And hold your camera still.
Yes.
Don't move it around the sky. Don't try to follow the object. So there's, it's going to be a while before any of that can be perfected enough to get more than just something that's just a white dot moving on a screen.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. You can get the best white dot moving on a screen that anybody's ever had. It's still not enough to convince people. Now, if you can get something, in the daytime that we can see, that's a different story.
Like what I just showed.
What you would held up. Or some of these other sightings that we've seen. Like, that's a different story. But
although I think what I got there is the R3 TB, but
do you All right. So we know that you've had experiences. We know that you've had sightings. We know that you've been given a few rides and taken to a few places
with other people.
But do you still look at the sky? Do you still
Every
look up
night.
and watch for those type of things?
Well, not so much watching for them, but I just enjoy looking at the sky.
See, I would be like, not looking up there. Nope.
Yeah. Whether I look or not, things are going to happen anyway.
But for the most part, I mean, is there a correlation? Like, do you see something in the sky and then say, okay, I know something's going to happen tonight?
Yes. To put it bluntly, yeah. Most people that are experiencers kind of know when things are about to happen.
So, do you think that it's that you're getting a heads up? Are you getting, or is it you just happen to be catching them?
It's not that, just looking up at the sky and saying, I know they're coming. It's most experiencers that have experiences have that, I guess, I don't want to use the word premonition, but have this feeling knowing that.
You just look down and all of a sudden you've sculpted your mashed potatoes type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm just saying, like, it's one of those things where it's not in your consciousness as it's happening until suddenly it dawns on you what it means.
No, I'm not talking moments. I'm talking sometimes a day or two ahead of time. You know it's coming. That kind of thing. You have kind of an advanced nose.
There is a question in the chat room that asks if you can share an experience. We've never really put you on the spot to do that on the show. I know that you've done it.
I've done it a couple of times.
You've done a little bit, but I'll leave that out there for you if you want to do it, but I'm not going to directly ask you to do that.
I have no problem sharing. It's on various videos that are.
Oh, which by the way, that Inside Edition thing came out very well.
They did a very good job with that. I was impressed.
And I was surprised that it was so long. It was like a 9-minute segment.
Did you put it up on the website? Did you put a link to it?
I think Matt did. I think Matt put it up there for people to check out.
It's up on there, but yeah.
So, I mean, I was just, surprised that...
Which one would you like me to talk about?
Well, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think would be the most beneficial for the listener to hear of the experiences that you have? Would it be the first time that it happened? Would it be the first time that you realized what was happening?
Well, it's happened on, ever since I was a little kid.
But at some point, you must have... Well, let me just ask you then as a pointed question. At some point, did you just accept it and say, okay, going for a ride tonight?
Yep. It's, I mean, when you're little and these things keep happening to you, you try and talk to your parents. Your parents, you're just having an active imagination. This is just this and just that, and stop watching all that crap on TV. And it's like, well, that's not what's happening.
So, I mean, I will ask some surface questions if that's all right.
Sure.
Is it a physical removal of your body, or is it just a removal of your consciousness?
No, it's definitely a physical removal of the body.
So if you were sitting here and it happened right now, you would disappear? You would float? What would happen?
Well, if you were to follow what happens in all of the other books and what the researchers know, but what's happened with me, yes, I have been taken with other people that have been in the room. One of the first things that will happen is everybody else will be switched off. Is the best way to describe it. Now,
so 1 minute you're there, 1 minute you're not, type of thing.
Right, but in the process of me being gone, you can't move. Matt Costa can't move, but you're fully aware that things are happening and you get to see things happening. Give a good example of one of the things that I talked about in the Inside Edition. I had a girlfriend that was living with me at the time. They came and took me. In the process of bringing me back, they woke her up, and she proceeded to freak out, and they essentially dropped me on the floor because I was immobile. She started jumping up on the bed screaming. They bumping off each other and then vanishing through the walls and peeking in back through the window. And, I'm here having to explain to her what the hell she just witnessed. And I was like, oh, yeah.
And you were already at the point where it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
nothing new to me.
Can you negotiate with them at all? Can you be like, not tonight?
There's no control over it.
So
the way I've described it in the past to everybody, it's like an unscheduled dentist appointment. You know it's going to suck. It's going to be over relatively quickly, and then you just move on with your life.
See, the questions that I have are the weird questions, the things that never get answered. That's what people want to talk about. Your experience. What did you saw? What happened? Like I have does it affect your physiology of sleep? So you go and they take you and
Yes.
they take you for however long you're gone for.
And when you come back, generally you're wiped out.
So it's not like,
Or at least for me, as same things reported.
so
by
it's
other
as if
people.
you were awake that whole time and being
Yes.
kept up all night long.
Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes, the physical things of what they do to your body.
And I know it doesn't always happen when you're sleeping either. I realize that
that's
too.
the other thing. That's the biggest misconception I would love to straighten out for people. The whole sleeping paralysis excuse. It's not an explanation, it's an excuse. Okay, first thing with sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is a thing that prevents the body from hurting itself. It's a vestige thing left over from when we used to sleep in trees. So your body didn't.
So we don't act out our dreams and
Right.
punch the person next to us.
So when you wake up, what happens with sleep paralysis is your body wakes up and your mind wakes up, but you're unable to move. Okay, you wake up paralyzed. When an experience happens, and if it's actually happening in the middle of the night, you wake up and you're able to move. I know people have thrown pillows and then you get immobilized. Can't do that with sleep paralysis. Okay, no, that and the other person in the room with you is also paralyzed. So there's no such thing as simultaneous, sleep paralysis. But what the most common activity is when a person is abducted? Driving. Okay, driving. So if you're having sleep paralysis while you're driving, there should be a lot more accidents.
That doesn't seem like the best.
It's the truth.
That seems like a bad choice on the part of the extraterrestrials to take people at that moment. What happens to the vehicle when they take them?
Usually the vehicle is either on the side of the road. They control the person to the side.
So it would just be like a disabled vehicle on the side of the road. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Or they're led to an off, because a lot of times the person next recollection they have is like, what am I doing on this dirt road and where am I headed? And
because we would know if there was a rash of vehicles that people were just disappearing from and then crashing into things. Be like, oh, I went to this scene of the crime, to this crash scene, and there was nobody there.
There's also been a number of cases where they've taken vehicle and all, and the vehicle has shown up 500 miles away in less than half an hour.
That's the way I would do it. I mean, it's got to be easier to just pull up the whole vehicle. I mean, I don't know how strong there was tractor beams are, what they use.
One case I recall from South America that they went from Belize to just outside of Mexico City in under an hour.
So are you saying that the time that we went to that Ghost Hunters premiere, we might have been abducted?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you were with Travis Walton, weren't you?
No. That was you and me and Matt in your old Mercedes.
Oh no,
when it took 25 minutes to go from Wareham to.
No, that was just my lead foot in a supercharged Mercedes.
That's the out of all the experiences I've had, everything paranormal. That's the only one that ever really scared me. It's those little details of things that I think make the difference for a lot of people between believing the story and not believing the story, because you can tell me all you want about what the ship was like and the procedures that they did and what they wanted to know, but it's all these little like loose end type things that are what people turn to and say, well, if people were getting abducted while they were driving, then their cars would crash. It's things like that I think are where the believability falters for some people. So then you're saying that most
abductions happen during the day, 65 to 70%. The other 30% happen at night. It's only like maybe about 10% that actually happen while you're in bed sleeping and what have you. And the only reason why it becomes, the most popular thing is because it shows where we're the most vulnerable.
Well,
it makes for good radio and television.
So you've been doing this for a long time. You've been looking into this for a long time. You worked with Bud Hopkins and the Intruders Foundation.
I've worked with John Mack. I've worked with Dave Jacobs, everybody.
Looking back at all of this stuff and going back to these stories, so would you say that you got a lot of these night abduction reports from people? And take your own experiences out of it, but look at what you were getting as reports from people. Would you say that you got a lot of these night abduction, middle of the night, kidnap type stories prior to Communion coming out, prior to Whitley Strieber sharing his experiences?
And the other thing is, you usually don't get
that's not really a fair question either, because I think that book came out probably before you got into some of this
Communion actually came out in early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah, let me get the actual year on it, but
I want to say like 89, maybe even 88. But
so February of 87. So
okay.
February of 87, you were what? Like you were, was that the year
I was
you
out of
graduated?
high school.
Okay. So you're starting to get into this stuff. You're already kind of working with Maurice on some of the stuff right at that point in your life.
Yeah.
So, but you're probably still, in the beginnings of your career as a researcher and getting some of this information. So based on just what you know, and maybe it's more of a question for Maurice, but you're saying that these nighttime abduction stories didn't happen nearly as frequently as they do now pre-Communion.
No, the reports are all uniform. Some people talk about being out in their garden when they first have their experience and this and that. After Communion and whatever, other researchers were looking for just specifically,
Those experiences.
Right. Because why? Because it helps sell books. Like I said, a lot of the people were concerned about it because it's when they're the most vulnerable. You're the most vulnerable when you're asleep. Okay. Who cares if they, visited you in your garden while you're planting petunias?
You know what? It's almost like, and I understand that for a lot of people, it's hard to believe any experience or story. But let's just say, you're somebody who's kind of on the cusp of, like it's possible, but I don't think everybody's telling the truth about it. Like that's me. I think that it's possible, but I don't think everybody that says that they had an experience is telling the truth about the experience. I think it's entirely possible that some people are delusional. Some people are making it. Same with any kind of paranormal experience. Some people who say that their houses are haunted are just mistaken, or some people are just looking for attention. It's the same as with anything else in the realm of what we talk about here. But I also think that for some people, it's easier to swallow when somebody tells you I was laying in my bed and all of a sudden I was taken from my bed than to say I was in my garden doing gardening work. Like they're like, whoa, you're seeing aliens during the day? Okay, you're definitely, there's something wrong with you. You're having hallucinations. But you say, oh, they came and they took me in the middle of the night. It's almost like, well, I can believe that because I've had those same fears when I'm laying in bed at night that somebody's in the house.
Right. They're preying on the person's fears is what's going. I'm talking about the authors and
right.
The media.
Well, let me ask you this then: do the beings take fear into account? It does not seem like they do.
No, for them it's just time. Time to go do this, time to go do that, and whatever. Sometimes it happens during the night. Sometimes it happens during the day. It's.
So it's that they're just not, they don't process the emotion that we feel. Would that be your?
In my personal opinion, I don't think they have emotions like we have emotions, or to the degree that we.
But
do.
they understand that when they come and they take somebody in the middle of the night.
Fear.
Yeah, they must understand, and that's. I mean, I don't know the basis of what it is that they're researching, but I can't imagine that's the most optimal experience. I know that if I want to pat a dog the best time to pat a dog is when he's coming up to me with his tail wagging and not when he's got a bone in his mouth.
Right.
So you would think that eventually they would learn, like, if I need to get what I need to get, it's probably better to, you know, grab these people that are like, hey, come and get me, than it is to grab these people that are like, I don't ever want to see you. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. There's been reports that I've got on a number of occasions where, you know, they didn't shut the switch off quick enough, and people have, you know, acted out against them. They've incurred injuries, and in some reports have even been killed.
Have you ever harmed one?
Have I?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that right where that is. And that's something that pertains to a particular experience that I had with some people that I want to keep that information.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So, but it's possible, is what you're saying.
Oh,
because you're saying other people have,
you know,
gone
the
through
other
the same
thing
thing.
people think, you know, they're so advanced, they don't make mistakes. They screw up all the time. There's countless stories of how they F up.
They would put you back in the wrong place?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, obviously it's not a big deal.
Oh,
if
yeah.
It's daytime where they drop you in a car.
It is
somewhere
when
else,
it's
but
February and you're outside your door, your own door, and you're not wearing anything. The door's locked.
Did you start hiding a key outside for that situation?
Yeah, actually, I did.
That'd be the first. That'd be the first thing I would do.
Yeah, actually, I did. I did not like that. That was not fun. There's been other cases where they put other people back in the wrong house, put the wrong clothes. A good friend of mine, Linda Corteil, was one of the subjects in Bud Hopkins' book. Linda and I know each other for years, and she still has us. She went to bed wearing like one of these Victoria's Secret teddies and woke up wearing a set of jogging shorts and a T-shirt that was written in Japanese. Now,
I'm trying to monitor the chat room to see if there's questions that pop in at the same time. So I don't think I'm not listening to you. But there is a question here from Mr. Apnea. Did you always feel that you would be brought home? Was there ever a time that you thought maybe this is it? I'm not going back, or was there ever a time that you said to them, I don't need to go back?
Oh yeah, there was one. Like I said, talking about harming. There was one occasion where I wasn't sure I was going to make it back, and when I did make it back, I came to with blood pouring out of my eyes, my ears, everywhere.
So, have you ever volunteered for longer duty?
No.
Okay.
Not. Some people, they're our space brothers, our friends. Yeah, I call that the Stockholm Syndrome.
Well, but hold on, because listen, let's be fair, because...
Well, it may be fine for them, but I'm not a willing participant.
You work very closely with the Starborn twins, and they kind of have that approach.
Oh, yeah, they do. And that, like I said, I met them there. That's how we met.
So, but you still work with them, and they have an opposite viewpoint. Well, not an opposite.
Everybody has their way of coping with different things. Okay,
they're very much of that, space brothers, connected kind of thing, and but you're saying that that's not always
like
the case.
I said, I look at that as Stockholm Syndrome, and you know what that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I suppose though that when you are getting to that point of acceptance, you do kind of feel like, is it the same all the time? Is it the same beings, or are they repeat customers, or is it more of, it's you've never seen the same one twice?
No. There's been a number of occasions where I am, I'll call it familiar with some of them.
Is there distinguishing ways to tell them apart?
Physically, no. It's just when they interact with you, you just like, I know your voice.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of idea.
But it's not a vocal transmission with them?
No, it's not necessarily vocal. They don't make any real audible vocalizations like you and I use language. They do make noise.
I'd say this because we've already had this conversation off air, but I should clarify for the listeners.
It's the longest I've ever talked about this on this show.
Well, because I know that it's not usually something that you want to discuss on the show, and you'll bring it up in the course of a discussion with somebody else, but
right.
We don't usually turn the spotlight onto you. And if you don't feel comfortable, believe me,
No,
just say, hey, let's take a break and we'll reset.
No, I have no problem with it. It is what it is.
But you have told me in the past, off the air, or maybe mentioned on a different show, that it's more of a, you just know what it is that they're saying, even though they're not saying it.
People like to throw the word out telepathy. It's not,
telepathy, though.
I can see how they would use the word.
Obviously, I wasn't there, so at least if I was, don't tell me. But if we've had that fight too.
Yeah.
But if telepathy to me, it means that it's a trick. It's an ability that they're forcing the thought into your mind, and it always sounds like with me, it's not. It sounds to me when I've talked to you about it, it's not really that. It's not really like I'm going to project this into your mind. It's more of a matter of it's just a more evolved form of communication.
Yeah.
That you're just able to do when you're around them.
Yes.
And so I think that I've never been shy about saying this. I think that's something that we're all capable of that we just don't do.
To a certain degree, humans do. I mean,
we do, but I think we could do way better with it than we do.
Well, the unspoken communication that humans have. There's actually a word for it in a book I read. It's called kinesics, where you're reading the body language and the motions that a person does, their facial contortions. You're able to communicate non-verbally, and you understand what's going on.
But sometimes you don't even need that to communicate.
Right.
Sometimes you just know. Like sometimes I can just look at you and go, and you're like,
yeah.
Like that's all you need. And I think that we could get to that level of being able to communicate that way. We just don't, because we're so self-absorbed that we can't pick up on those same. And I don't mean self-absorbed like we purposely only care about ourselves.
What you're talking about is the latent communication that we used to have before we invented language.
Right. Language kind of made us, isolated from each other.
Actually, it did. Yeah.
Yeah. And see, this is why, like, I fight with people, and I'm not going to make this political. But when people have an issue with globalization and, people are like, well, I really support this trend that's going on, not just here, but across, around the world of nationalism, and everybody kind of staying in their areas and keeping these borders up and all that. But I look at it I'm looking at it more from like, where can human beings go? I'm not even thinking politically. I'm not thinking governments. I'm not thinking economies. I'm thinking just each individual person interacting with each other individual person. Where can this go? And I think that that's where we can be, where we can be to a point where these things that connect us all, these energies that connect us all, that we know are there, that we can take better advantage of those so that we can do something better for each other. So I walk into the room. I know that you're upset about something. And instead of asking you what's wrong and having to talk to you about what's wrong and have you pull up all those emotions and have to live through all that again.
Nothing's wrong.
But we say like, oh, it helps to talk about it. And it does. But you know what would help more about it than talking about it is if I could just walk into the room and I see that you're upset and I say, no, you're not upset anymore. And I think that we have the ability to do that. We just have to get there. And the fact that we the ego is so self-centered, and I'm talking the ego of, psychology. So not just our own
what about the
selfishness.
Then, this is a serious question, I should say. What about the id as well?
Well, but that's also going to be the driving force for that ego staying so self-centric.
Okay.
So they're going to be in battle with each other, but if we can get to that point where we are selfless, then we're going to basically, my long-winded point is, if we get to that point, we're going to have those type of communication abilities. So it's not going to be
again.
Right. Well, I don't know, because I think even,
like I said, we had that form of communication before we developed language.
But I think even then there was limitations to that that we can get beyond going forward. Just think about it like this. I mean, for people that say, well, that doesn't sound natural to me. Think about when a woman is carrying a baby,
right,
and she just knows something's wrong. Or
how about twins?
Right, they have that innate connection already. So there's enough of these signs that I think that's where we're. I mean, is that a great thing for a guy that does radio for a living to say that someday we don't have to talk? Probably not, but I think that we won't have to talk someday. Why don't we take a break, and we can take some of your calls as well. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. We're gonna run a real quick break for a minute here, and then when we come back, we can take your calls. We can keep talking about this. We can keep talking about what our limitations are as human beings, and not to say the sky's the limit, because as we're learning here, the sky is no limitation whatsoever. All right, we'll be right back in just about 60 seconds.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
But again, we will take your calls and your thoughts at 508-996-0500. Maybe you have a question that you want to ask Moniz. Again, we're only going to ask him to respond to what he's comfortable about, because the same reason why when we have Stephanie in here, and she's actually out of the studio this week, but I think she's coming back next week. This is one of the reasons why when she's here, we don't have her perform with her abilities. You know what I mean? Because that's not what you're here for. Like, you're not here to be put on the spot. You're here to offer insight.
I have no problem talking about my experiences or things in it. Certain things I want to keep under my hat, only because when I'm interviewing other experiencers, there are things I don't want to put out into the general, population in terms of information that's generally kept within.
Right. You need to have some things that you can. The same reason. I mean, not to equate it to a crime, but when we're reporting on a crime, we don't get all the information.
Right. Yeah.
Because they have to keep some things in reserve.
Right.
But it's the same thing as I was saying, though, with Stephanie. Like, I've said to her, we will never have you come on this show and do readings. Like, even when we don't have anything to talk about, and if we were completely failing and we're on the air for another hour and a half and we've got nothing to talk about, I will do an hour and a half talking about snacks before I will say to you, like, you have to do readings now. Now, if she felt like there was a reason to do it, it's wide open. Like, you can certainly do it. I would never stop you from doing it. But I just feel like it's not what you're here for. And I don't ever want... And then what you do, what ends up happening is you set a precedent of that. So if we had Stephanie come in and said, Stephanie, we don't have anything to do with this. We don't have a guest. We don't really know what we're going to talk about. Can you just do some readings? And she says, okay, I will. And then she does it. Then the next 4 weeks, we're just getting phone calls from people that want readings because they see Stephanie sitting in that seat. So I just feel like it's not really fair. And there's the other aspect of it too, of, that's her business. Yeah. And this show isn't real. I mean, we're hoping
of us get paid here.
We're hoping to help you with your business by you being part of the show, but we're not here to actively promote your business. Like, that's what's different when you're a guest, because you're giving us the service of coming on, that we will promote what it is that you do. But when it comes to kind of us, we want to let you know about things, but we don't want to turn this into a commercial for things. We've been accused of that. Oh, yeah. We've been accused of turning this show into a commercial for some of our other ventures.
And I have to say, in some cases, not far off. Yeah. But, it's changed now.
The thing is if we have these things that are going on, this is our avenue to let you know about it. And the people that are listening are the people that come to these events.
Yeah, it's more for the people that are going to be coming to them to let them know. Yeah.
So... Yeah. We have a cruise coming up in May, and the final payment for the cruise is due January 3rd. So if you want to act now and get the special deal and have it at, hundreds of dollars less than what it would cost you if you book it after January 3rd, then go to wickedwaterscruise.com and sign up for it. Use my promo code TIM, and you can still get that special rate between now and January 3rd. But you can also buy the tickets after that and just have to pay more. So keep that in mind. Maybe you're waiting for your taxes to come back. You can do that and buy the tickets then and still use my promo code Tim, and any discounts or any kind of specials that are available you'll get by using that. So yeah, there's your commercial.
There you go.
But I think I've said this before on the air, where the day here's how I found out about your experiences.
Okay.
Is you told us that you were going to be on Destination America.
Yeah.
That there was an episode of Monsters and Mysteries in America.
Yep.
And you were going to be on it.
Yep.
And I watched the episode. I still disagree with the casting choice of the person they picked to play you. Like, how is that even close to Moniz? I'm thinking in my head, I was like, of all, like, what's the casting call to play Moniz? Like, what do you put up as here's what we're looking for? Basically, they're like,
it was close enough to fit the story.
The worst part about it was the bar was certainly miscast.
Oh, God. Yeah, the bar was far off.
They basically took what was a Hells Angels biker bar in real life.
Yes.
And they turned it into some, like, wine and tapas.
Yeah. No. Okay.
The kind of place that, by the way, if you know Moniz, he would never be in.
Yes, correct.
Like, not even the guy playing Moniz probably would never be in a place like that. But anyway, so we're watching this special, and that's when I heard for the first time that you had actually had experiences. And my first thought was, like, what the hell? Why is this the first time that we're hearing about this?
But I never, from the first time I started working with you guys, I told you I was into researching this material.
Right. You never said that you weren't.
Correct. You also never asked. Right.
And so that's kind of where I went through. I was like, where's this coming from all of a sudden that he's just now saying? And then, when we were talking about it and I mentioned it to you and you said, like, it's never come up because I don't feel the need to talk about it.
Yeah. And
so we kind of made it a point to say then, okay, well, you didn't bring it up before. We're not going to bring it up on the show now. And I think we might have just, given that episode a little bit more of a plug to say, hey, it's going to be on again this time and this time, but we didn't turn it into a, so Moniz, now that we know that you're an abductee, what does this mean?
It was never a secret. And like I said, I've been on other shows and in other books long before the show ever started.
Well, but also, too, like, my experience with you when you had said that was, going and reading, in the Left at Eastgate,
yeah,
and reading about the soil sample tests, and I know that you were in Linda Moulton Howe's book, but I don't think I was ever able to get my hands on a copy of that. But so, I was looking at it from the perspective of you were this scientist that they were calling in for help with some of these things that they were researching. I didn't really put two and two together. That it would be.
I worked in both worlds. So
right. I didn't really think of it beyond just the lending your scientific expertise. One of the things, though, that probably could have been a clue was, the work that you were doing with the Intruders Foundation, which to have Bud Hopkins on the show and to have him, I think we've said before, I think we were his last interview, right?
Yes.
And we actually have a bad reputation of being people's last interviews. We should probably be careful with that. But to have him say, like, kind of how he met you, and I went back and kind of listened to that episode to hear him say, like, how he. I'm like, maybe there were signs that we just didn't pick up on. Maybe I'm not as good of a journalist as I think I am, because
I was listening to this like, oh God, Bud just said, and we just kept rolling with it, and I just went with it.
So I think that I'm just going to turn over here and see if there's any.
No.
Okay, Eileen Munson, we love you. You're a great listener and an active part of the chat room every week, and we were happy. We appreciate you, but I just have to say, Mel Gibson is Moniz.
No,
I think Eileen's.
I'm a lot more patient.
I hope she's joking with that. Although, Moniz has never been caught on audio screaming about the Jews, so there's that too.
No, not anti-Semitic.
But I'm just giving her some crap. No, that's a fine recommendation. She thinks that Mel Gibson now should play you, not handsome Mel Gibson of the 1980s. She's talking about like train wreck Mel Gibson now. But we were talking a little bit about the experiences and about how they can kind of happen at any time of day. And you said that, more often than not, it happens during the daytime for people. Do you find that that's actually harder for the experiencer to have it happen during the day? Because I talked to you about like believability for somebody on the outside to say it's more believable for them to think you were taken from your bed in the middle of the night than to think you were abducted during the day. During the day, they think, oh, you're just hallucinating. What does the person that's going through it feel about that? How do they feel differently about it during the day? Do they worry about their own sanity based on the fact that it's happening while they're awake?
As I said, most experiencers have these experiences start at a young age, and usually the younger age, it's happening in the daytime, nighttime. So I'm good. If I haven't been having it happen now, I'm probably okay. If you were an experiencer, chances are you would already know you are.
It's not starting at 40. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm already past the age where they want to start doing
Although it all depends. Now, this is one of the things I like to focus on because, it's how I, here's something I'm going to share that most people are going to be like, oh my God. It's how I met my first wife.
Well, you've told us that before.
I don't think I've ever mentioned that.
No, not publicly.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah. When I was a young teenager, taken during an experience, brought into a particular room, introduced to a young girl about my age. We were left in this room to interact for about, I'd say, 20 minutes, half an hour. So we were exchanging information about the music we liked, this and that, and what I was doing at school and what she was doing at school and whatever. And then they came in, separated us, and brought us back to, our respective places. And about, I'd say, 7-8 years later, I'm sitting in a planetarium at a lecture given by Stanton Friedman on April Fool's Day. And as I'm sitting there with Maurice, listening to Stanton Friedman.
And for those who don't know, Maurice is Matt's mentor.
Yeah. Author of The Devil's Alibi and, a long-time researcher. As I'm sitting there with Maurice and I'm listening to Stanton Friedman, I look across, and in the front row on the opposite side of me is that same girl. And
now, are you looking at her and saying, you look familiar, or are you looking at her and saying, I know exactly where I know you from?
Well, the first, I would say 15, 20 seconds is, she looks familiar. I know. And then it hit me. And I could see the same look on her face when she's looking back at me. And then after Stanton got done talking, we immediately went up and started talking to each other. And it's like, I know you. And she's like, I know you too. And then it's like, I asked her, where do you know me from? And she's like, I don't know if I want to tell you.
So she had the same recollection that you did.
Yeah.
And were you from the same area when you first met?
Yeah, I was living down the Cape. She was living Swansea, Seekonk area.
Okay.
At that time.
So when you were wherever that you were together, I'll use the term on the ship, but we'll just use that as. Yeah. So when you were on the ship together, you were still you were talking about where you were from.
Yeah.
Did that come up in that initial conversation?
The funny part is, no, we didn't talk about the exact, we were just talking about school. Hey, school, I didn't say I went to this school, and she didn't say, we were talking.
Because my question would be, is if you met somebody on the ship and you said, hey, I'm from, Wareham, and she's like, well, I'm from Swansea. The first thing that I would do is I would go to Swansea and try to look for her, just to kind of find this person outside of that circumstance to say, but it didn't come up in that conversation.
No, it didn't. Our first part of our conversation was what's happening, where are we, what's going on, and, you know, are they coming back? You know, we did exchange names.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, and then we started talking about, you know, how we felt and being trapped in this. And then, like I said, I remember the conversation moving on to music, talking about the different types of music we both like.
Let's face it, it's not exactly like you're going to be, you know, I'm sure the conversation was somewhat like, let's just talk about anything that, except the fact that we're both sitting here right now on an alien spaceship.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you're just sitting there like, so do you like music?
Yeah.
You know, just kind of to
and you're dealing with
trying to normalize the situation a little bit.
Right. You know, you're dealing with teenagers at the time. We both would have been about maybe 15, 16, maybe a little older, but it's a teenager, you know,
So then, first of all, take that, paranormal date. But do you feel, though, that like that?
Yeah, but and then, like I said, after that, we both started really getting into this paranormal thing, hook, line, and sinker. Because this is not wound up getting married, then wound up getting divorced.
This is not an isolated case. This is something that you spent years researching this exact type of phenomena.
Exactly, and that's what I was focused on, is how many other people are.
And that research probably started after this, I'm assuming?
Yes, yeah. And that's what got into Bud's book and how we started working with Bud and all of these other researchers and doing our own thing. You'd be surprised how many people are taken together. Okay, so when you start taking that into consideration, it takes it out of the realm of what I call, we're not going to be airing this, right? It's just going to be on podcast,
right?
So I can use
if you need to. Yeah,
it takes it out of the realm of what I call psychobabble bullshit and puts it into a whole nother category, because, you know, two people aren't having the same hallucination. You know?
Well, and the other part of it too is, if it was some kind of a delusion, it could be possible that two people could come back with the same delusion, that they could convince each other of what it was that they had experienced. But to have it be two people that didn't know each other,
correct,
to both come up and be like, like right away, and just to lay it out there.
Yeah,
it's
with
not
the same
like,
exact story.
It's not like one person was trying to convince the other person.
Right.
Like, hey, I think I met you on a ship one time. Like, what? Yeah, we were on an alien ship. I've never been on an alien. No, you were there. Like, it's not like that kind of a conversation. It's more of a,
I say one thing, you're able to complete the rest of that, what I know, and yeah.
So, and as I said, you know, you made this kind of a focus of your research, and in doing that research, I think, you know, not to put words in your mouth, but I think that the conclusion is that these are not meet cutes that are just happening accidentally. Like, this is something that's kind of being directed.
Correct. And it's being done for a reason. They bring people together to associate for a reason. Not sure what that reason is. Some people say it's for breeding. Not necessarily. Not all of the people that are brought together are end up being romantically involved.
Well, I mean, obviously, like, you're not romantically involved with the Starborn twins.
No.
But you're, I mean, if you are, I mean, that's your business.
But no, they're very good friends. They are more like sisters to me.
And they that's how they refer to you.
Yeah.
You know, you refer to each other as siblings.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, that was a matter of being brought together for that relationship.
Right. I think
I see enough.
Yeah.
I see enough signs, though, with things like that, with relationships like that, and granted, you know, as you said, things didn't work out in that marriage, but whatever. That
was purely human related.
Yeah, I'm sure that's. I'm sure but I'm sure there's also situations where this happens where, you know, it's the love of a lifetime for people.
Yeah.
And they stay together forever. And I'm sure that there's friendships that are formed. And not everyone is like yourself and the Starborn twins, where you stay friends. You know, they kind of move in and out of each other's lives. But
I have a couple of abductee friends that are couples now. I'll give a shout out to Jack and Suzanne. And there are others that have become very, very good, fast friends, and some of them have even become co-workers, starting businesses together, working together, doing businesses. They're brought together because there is something that connects these people to each other that they're interested in.
And you get that sense if you watch the Inside Edition video. You know, it gives you that sense because everybody's kind of talking about that. And obviously what they've done with Starborn Support is a huge positive.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can feel however you want about abductees. You can think that they're all crazy and that everybody's making it up and all that. You can be one of those type of skeptical people, but even you being in that position have to look at a group of people that are able to take comfort in each other.
Yeah.
And say, I mean, you might say, hey, they're just feeding each other's delusions, but whatever. You can see that they are forming this close friendship and forming this sense of family about it. If you are a believer in what is happening, then you know that is probably saving those people's lives.
Yes.
To be part of that family and to at least have somebody that they can share those experiences with. And is that an intended byproduct of what's going on? Is that something that these forces up there are trying to foster? Or is this just something that has happened because the experience is so traumatic that you have to kind of take solace in each other where you can find each other?
I think it may be a bit of both. Little column A, little column B.
But you think that I mean, I guess my bigger question is it a benevolence to what it is that they're doing? Are they trying to do something that is either good or kind of devoid of intention?
Now, this comes solely from me and my own viewpoint on this. I think what they're doing is their own agenda, not necessarily that just for our benefit, for our betterment and stuff like that. They're doing something that's on their own. If it benefits us, maybe that's just a secondary thing that happens because of it. They are doing things for their own reasons. Okay. Are we getting some sort of benefit out of it? Some of it, yes. Some of it may hold a detriment to us too that we're not aware of at this point.
Because the rational part of my mind says that you get more flies with honey. If you want to do whatever it is that you're doing, you're better off finding those who want to do it. You're better off taking volunteers than you are to
that's the
conscription.
Whole point. Not all of them are volunteers. Like I said, the Starborn twins, I love them to death, but they're all about our space brothers, and I hear that with a number of other people. Oh, I want to go, and then you got some people like me. Yeah, you better make damn sure I'm immobilized, because if I get my hands on you, I will end you.
Even now still?
Even now still.
And not due to... It's not a...
I am not a willing participant. Other people like to call them experiencers.
So you've just
and stuff like that. No, I'm a motherfucking abductee.
So you just learn to accept it.
Yeah.
But you still don't want it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me involved, have the balls enough to land on my, on my dock. But come knock on my door and ask me to.
But that's the thing is, I'm thinking to myself, like, that would be the better way of doing things. Basically what it is they're drafting you and forcing you to do this against your will. And you're not going to get the best results for whatever you're trying to do by having people that you're forcing to participate. We have a great audience of people that love this show and love to interact with this show. But if I go around blasting it to people that don't want to hear it, I'm not doing myself any favors. But then and that's the mindset that I think, why can't they just take people that want to be part of it? There's plenty of people that stand out there and say, why won't you take me? So, but here's the thing. I look at the way that we interact with things around us and things that we feel to be beneath us yet interesting to us. And we don't judge. We don't look for volunteers. We don't walk into a pet store and say, which one of you dogs wants to come home with me?
All of them.
We walk into, well, sure, but we walk into a pet store and say, I want that one. I want that one. We walk into a supermarket and we say, I want that cut of meat. I want that lobster. We walk into a restaurant, we say, I want that meal. Yeah. We don't say, like, who wants to come home with me, head of lettuce?
Yeah.
You know, we just take what we want because we don't, you know, I'm trying to go with at least things that we think might have some sort of a consciousness, but we don't give them the choice. We just take what it is that we want and we expect them to adapt to the situation. And so maybe this is the same thing. Maybe this is like, you're there. Sure. Well, I'll take you.
See, that's the funny part.
Do you feel there's a reason why it's you?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe it has to do with genetics. A lot of abductions follow family lines. And we know for sure that, you know, there are many abductees that are repeat family abductions. In other words, it goes back in family lineage, you know, number of generations. So,
I don't want you to speak out of school for your family if you don't want to, but have you found that to be in your own history?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So I'm thinking that is definitely genetic. They're looking for something in us genetically to be done. You know, whether it's
and in all the research that you've done, all the work that you did with Bud, and all the years of research that you've done since, you haven't found a commonality.
One of the commonalities is the Rh factor in blood.
Well, why? Because here's something. Here's an answer when there's not a lot of answers.
Get into it. I'll let the listeners go look into it. Okay.
Well, I mean, give us at least a rough idea of, like, what would that be? A person that has that, what would be a characteristic of them? What does it mean to have that characteristic? Is more the question that I'm looking at.
Well, one of the characteristics of this particular thing that they're looking at is that science isn't sure why it exists in the first place.
Okay. So
now, me knowing a lot more about genetics and things of that nature, what it is I'm looking at it as where they first spliced into the human genome for whatever purposes they're doing. Okay, it's an entry point of what, you know, okay, we know that we've broken this little part in, so now we can insert or delete out whatever they're looking to do. Just my own personal theory, I can't.
Right.
You know,
but at least you've done enough research and encountered enough.
Yeah.
Enough examples of it that you can say, okay, this seems to be more than just.
Statistically, there's a higher number or degree of this.
Right. Because, I mean, I'm sure you can drive yourself crazy trying to find commonalities amongst the different people. But if you have something that stands out like that you can say, okay, at least this might be part of the reason why.
Oh, a vast majority of abductees are right-handed. Well, a vast majority of the public is right-handed.
You have to find something that is an outlier anyway.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, if you have something that's an outlier amongst the general population, but also is a high frequency event within that portion of people, then you can look at it and say, maybe this is why. Have you asked them if that's what it's all about?
I've tried asking. It's mainly one-way conversations. You know, they're telling you what they want you to do. You know, I try and talk. Here's one of the only things that I had said back to me, and I use air quotes when I say the word said. You know, when I was younger, I was like doing whatever I could to try and cope with it, and at one point I was in what I would call my denial phase of it. You know, when one of the times I was taken, I was like, okay, I don't believe in you. You don't exist. You're not real. I don't believe in you. I remember sending that directly to one of them, and I got this puzzled look. I'll never forget. It was a puzzled look, and the impression I got back was, it doesn't matter if you believe we exist. What matters is we believe you exist. And at that point, I'm like, oh, crap.
Right. I mean, in a way, though, that's what all of this is about. all of these things that we talk about. It doesn't matter if you believe. It doesn't keep it from existing. You know, you can be the most ardent skeptic out there and say, well, none of that stuff is real. But that doesn't, you not believing in it doesn't negate the experiences that I have had or the countless others that have had it. It just means that you're not either exposed to it or willing to accept what it was that you were exposed to. Kind of like when you told me that I might have been an abductee, and I said, nope, not hearing this, not listening to it.
I haven't brought it back up since you told me not to, have I?
You have not. I will give you credit for that. I've talked about it, I think, a few times here on the air, but it got to the point where I went back to my parents. So just real quick, and then we'll wrap up the show. But I used to have like recurring dreams when I was a kid of disappearing from my room, and I used to like want to sleep between my parents because I wouldn't want to be in my room alone, which is not uncommon for a kid.
And let me guess, you had various weapons hidden around your bed. You used to keep your.
I did not, because I wouldn't go into my room.
But I'm saying if you were in your room, you would select. I'm not saying you had an AK-47 beside your bed, but you
I don't
had
remember if I did. I remember like for a long time in my life, I never wanted to like play in my room. Like I wanted to be where the people were. So I wouldn't be like, I do have like some vague recollections of being the same age. It was when I was about 4 years old. And I do have some vague recollections of being in the house, in my bedroom. Like I remember playing on my bedroom floor I had this, like a kid's record player that played like those plastic records with the bumps on them. Yeah. And so I remember sitting on my floor playing with that in my room. But I don't remember like being in my room any other time besides that, except for being put into bed and then freaking out. But I when I lived in this house, I would swear that I would wake up in the morning. I'd wake up in the morning outside of my house in the next neighborhood over, and that my parents like put an extra lock on the door because this was happening. And I remember like I remember like knocking on somebody's door, somebody coming out of their house and like asking me who I was and where I lived, because there was just a kid on their front lawn. And I remembered another time when we were camping around the same time, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I looked over to my parents' sleeping bag and they weren't there. And so I left the tent looking for them, and I'll never forget, because for some reason it stands out in my mind that the blades of grass on the ground as I was walking looked like they were like snapping at my feet. And so I was like trying to walk as fast as I could because I thought that the grass was going to bite me. Yeah. And so I walked to where there was a camper and some people playing cards. And I walked over and I said, are my parents here? And they're like, no, your parents aren't here, kid. Like, why? Where'd you come from? And I was like, my campsite's over there. And I woke up and my parents were gone. And so they walked me back to my campsite, and when they did, my parents were sleeping in the sleeping bag inside the tent. Now, could that have been like my parents snuck out to go do some, parents things? But they swore no. They swore that didn't happen. And so I remember I had shared this with you, and I remember sharing it with you in the Houghton Mansion, in the library of the Houghton Mansion. And you basically gave me that same, like, I'm not going to say it because I know you don't want me to say it. But you had brought that up, and I let that marinate for years. And then one night I just said to my parents, I said, well, remember when I was younger and I used to like leave the house in the middle of the night and go into the other neighborhood? And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, when we lived in Randolph and you had to like put an extra lock on the door and everything so that it was higher than I could reach. And I still got out and you couldn't figure out how. I'm like, no, that never happened. And I'm like, but no, because I wouldn't have made up that memory. I wouldn't have had any reason to make up that memory. So
what would it serve?
Right. Like, why would I remember my parents adding a lock onto the door? Like, of all the things that would be associated with that experience, that would be something that I wouldn't want to have that memory, because I'd want to.
Right. It's like,
I'd want to think like.
Why would you create a memory of, they put 2 lights on their nightstand.
Right.
Yeah.
And why would I think that there'd be something standing in the way of me actually getting out and having this experience, you know? Like, why would I put up a block to this story that I'm trying to remember having happened? I mean, I guess maybe subconsciously it makes the story better. I don't know. But anyway, I didn't make up the memory. And so, like, they kind of argued with me a little bit about it. And I haven't gotten to the point yet where I've said to them, like, all right, honestly now, are you just telling me that? Or did it really, really not happen? But maybe it's a conversation that we do have to have. But it's freaky. That's why I don't really like to go down that road.
All right. Any more questions before we end?
No, I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. Just because we can leave. And I'm also worried that if I start asking you more questions, you're going to start asking me more questions that I don't want to answer.
Exactly. That's why.
But we can save some also for a future episode as well. So, and we do have a question about the podcast. Yes, I am working on updating that. I fell behind a little bit in getting some of the newer episodes up, but I will work on that. I was basically having some trouble with the Hipcast, the podcast server, and getting stuff up there in a fashion that works. And then when I try to do it, Matt, I forget. You know, so when I sit down, I can't upload multiple episodes at once, because when I do that, we seem to have a problem. So then it's a matter of like finding the time to go to that computer where I have the programs to do that with, remembering to do it. We'll try and get all caught up before the end of the year. And I did upload a couple of them. There's like 3 episodes up there, and I think there's only like 2 that we haven't uploaded yet. It'll be 3 with this one, so we'll try to get all caught up on it. But thank you to everybody for tuning in. If you want to check out the show on the podcast, you can get it wherever podcasts are found. You can also watch all of the episodes as videos on YouTube. We also rebroadcast every week on the Dark Matter Digital Network. So if you want to listen to the show and relive it in its semi-live glory, you can do that on the Dark Matter Network each week. And you can always reach out to us as well. Spooky Crew at SpookySouthCoast.com. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at SpookySC. Instagram, wherever else you can follow us, please do so. We love to hear from you. We love to hear the topics that you want us to talk about. And we love to hear your thoughts on some of the shows that we have presented. So we'll be back next week with another edition of the show. Until next time, for Matt, for Stephanie, I'm Tim. We want you all out there to stay spooktacular.